The mahogany desk in Madison Blake's office felt like an island in a sea of litigation. At 34, she was a senior associate at Miller & Graves, a firm where the carpet smelled of expensive cedar and the silence was heavy with the weight of corporate secrets. Madison lived for the logic of the law, the way a well-placed precedent could dismantle an opponent's entire reality. But logic deserted her the moment Leo's phone buzzed on the charging pad. He'd left it behind in his rush to a late-night strategy session. The screen illuminated, casting a pale glow over the stacks of depositions. The message was from Chloe, her best friend since law school, the woman who had held her hair back after bar exam celebrations and stood as her maid of honor in spirit, if not yet in title. "Can't wait for tonight," the text read. "Same place. Don't tell em it's almost over." The words felt like a physical blow, a sharp, cold blade sliding between her ribs. Madison stared until the screen went dark. She stood up, her legs feeling like they were made of glass outside. The city was a blur of neon and rain, the rhythmic swish of tires on wet asphalt echoing the frantic beating of her heart. Madison grabbed her trench coat, the fabric stiff and impersonal. She didn't call him. She didn't text Chloe. Instead, she walked out of the office past the security guard who offered a polite nod she didn't return, and descended into the damp chill of the evening. Her apartment was only 6 blocks away, a sleek, modern space she shared with Leo, filled with mid-century furniture and the hollow echoes of a relationship she suddenly realized she didn't understand. She walked the distance, her mind spinning through every late night Leo had claimed, every brunch Chloe had cancelled, every whispered conversation that died the moment she entered a room. The betrayal felt like a thick, oily film over her skin. She reached their door, her hand trembling as she fumbled for her keys. The silence inside was worse. She moved toward the leather briefcase, her fingers tracing the cold brass latches. Click. The sound was deafening. Inside, tucked into a silk-lined pocket, was a small, square velvet box. Her heart hammered. Was this a proposal? She remembered the text. "It's almost over." Her stomach lurched. "You don't say that about a beginning, you say it about an end." She pried the box open. Inside was an exquisite necklace, a single, pear-cut emerald. Madison felt a wave of nausea. Emeralds were Chloe's obsession. Madison was a woman of diamonds, sharp and clear. This wasn't for her. The "don't tell em" echoed in her skull. She snapped the box shut and shoved it back. She felt like a ghost haunting a life that had moved on without her. She needed visual proof to silence the hopeful voice in her head. She grabbed her coat and stepped back into the rain. The Gilded Lily was 6 blocks away. She had to see them. The Gilded Lily was a cave of amber light and the scent of rye. Madison scanned the room, her breath hitching as she spotted them in the back booth. Leo and Chloe were huddled close, their silhouettes merging. Leo's hand was on the table, and Chloe's fingers were entwined with his. Madison watched as Chloe reached into her bag and pulled out a thick white envelope. She slid it across the table with a look of intense urgency. Leo took it, tucking it into his jacket with a grim nod. The transaction was practiced and silent. Madison backed out into the rain, the betrayal feeling multi-layered. It wasn't just an affair, it was an exchange of secrets. She walked to the Miller and Graves building, her mind spinning. If they were sharing documents, her career was the likely casualty. She reached her office on the 42nd floor, her wet heels squeaking on the marble. She needed to see if Leo had been into her files while she slept. She logged into the server, her eyes burning from the monitor's glare. She searched the activity logs for the Kendrick merger, the billion-dollar deal that was her ticket to partnership. There it was, a series of remote logins from an encrypted IP address. Someone had been downloading her strategy folders for 3 nights. The timestamps matched the hours Leo claimed to be at the gym. Her blood turned to ice. They weren't just sleeping together, they were selling her out. The emerald necklace wasn't a gift, it was a payoff. "It's almost over" wasn't about a romance, it was the countdown to her professional execution. Madison felt a cold resolve. She wouldn't be a victim. She spent hours mapping the digital theft, tracing the files to a shell company in the Caymans. By dawn, she had enough evidence to disbar Leo and ruin Chloe. She returned home, moving like a ghost, and watched Leo sleep, feeling only a clinical disgust. Morning was a masterclass in deception. Leo kissed her cheek, complaining of a headache. Madison watched him, her voice a perfect mask of casual interest. "Busy day?" she asked. "The usual," he lied. After he left, she followed him to a Soho hotel. She watched from a gray sedan as he met Chloe in the lobby. They went to the 12th floor together. Madison followed, her heart a frantic drum. She found them outside room 1204. Chloe was handing Leo more papers, her face pale. "This is the last of it," Chloe whispered. Madison didn't wait. She charged forward, throwing a folder of evidence at them. "I hope it was worth it," she screamed. Leo and Chloe froze, their shock genuine. "I saw the texts. I saw the file transfers. You're stealing the Kendrick data." She was shaking with fury, her eyes welling with tears. "I saw the emeralds, Leo. Is that her commission for destroying me?" The air in the hall felt heavy with her accusation. Leo looked at the scattered papers, then back at Madison with deep pity. "Madison, stop," he said softly. "We aren't sleeping together, and we aren't stealing your files." Madison laughed, a jagged sound. "Then what is this? Why the secret meetings?" Chloe stepped forward, taking Madison's hand. We weren't trying to ruin you. We were trying to save you." Madison froze. "Save me from what?" Leo sighed, leaning against the door. "The Kendrick merger is a front. Miller and Graves is using you to facilitate a massive money laundering scheme. They chose you because you're loyal and brilliant, the perfect shield. They knew you'd find the loopholes they needed, but they didn't think you'd look at the source of the capital." Madison felt a chill. "What?" Chloe squeezed her hand. "I found out through a witness. We had to move in secret because your office is bugged. We used your logins to mirror their data to get evidence for the DOJ before you were implicated." "The necklace," Chloe continued, gesturing to the velvet box. "Madison, it's a recording device. We needed to plant it in Miller's office tonight. It's almost over," meant the investigation was ending. "We were going to the feds to clear your name before the handcuffs came out." The world stopped spinning. The betrayal wasn't of her heart, it was of her life's work. Her firm had marked her for destruction. Madison sank to her knees, the truth crushing her. Her guardians were the ones she had nearly crucified. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Leo pulled her into a hug. "We hated lying, but Miller is dangerous." Madison looked up, her lawyer's mind pivoting. "If we're taking down Miller, we need a better strategy. Give me the necklace. I'm going back into the office. I know where he keeps the physical ledger for the Special Projects Fund. If I get that, he can't wiggle out of this. We need the kill shot." Leo drove her to the glass tower as the rain drummed on the roof. Madison adjusted the emerald necklace, the stone cold against her skin. She walked into the lobby, her face a mask of corporate poise. The security guard nodded as she swiped her card. On the 42nd floor, she bypassed her desk and headed for Elias Miller's office. The door was locked, but she knew the code. Inside, the room smelled of cedar and expensive scotch. She moved to the hidden safe behind the bookshelf. Her hands shook as she typed the last 6 digits of a known offshore account. The safe clicked open. Inside was a leather-bound ledger, the roadmap of corruption. She began photographing the pages with her phone, every click sounding like a thunderclap. She was halfway through when the lights flickered on. "Looking for something, Madison?" Elias Miller stood in the doorway, his eyes cold behind his spectacles. He held a glass of scotch, watching her with a lethal calm. "I found the ledger, Elias," Madison said, her voice steady despite the hammer of her heart. "I know about the Caymans and the cartel." Miller took a slow sip of his drink. "You were supposed to be our future, Madison. All you had to do was look the other way. You would have been wealthy." Madison felt a wave of disgust. "I'm a lawyer, not a laundromat." Miller stepped into the room, his gaze darkening. "I can't let you leave with that." Madison tapped the emerald necklace. "It's a live feed, Elias. Everything you just said is being recorded and transmitted to a secure server. The DOJ is listening to us right now." Miller's face went pale. He lunged across the desk, but the office door burst open before he could reach her. A team of federal agents flooded the room. Federal agents. Drop the glass. Miller was tackled to the floor as Madison stepped back, the adrenaline fading into a deep, hollow exhaustion. It was finally, truly over. The aftermath was a whirlwind of depositions and the collapse of Miller and Graves. Madison was the star witness, her testimony sealing the fate of the partners who had betrayed her. Leo and Chloe stayed by her side through every headline and hearing. She didn't return to corporate law. Instead, she joined Chloe at the public defender's office, trading the glass tower for a crowded workspace where she fought for people, not profits. 6 months later, Madison sat in a sunny cafe with Leo. He placed a simple box on the table, no secrets, no hidden trackers. Inside was a diamond ring. "I think we've had enough drama for a lifetime," he said. Madison smiled, feeling a peace she hadn't known in years. More than enough. She realized the betrayal she feared had been a catalyst for a truth she needed. As she slipped the ring on her finger, she knew that loyalty was found in the people who fought for you in the dark. She was finally home. The transition to the public defender's office wasn't easy. Madison was used to the luxury of Miller and Graves, the private chefs, the town cars, the endless supply of high-end stationery. Now, she shared a printer with 4 other lawyers and spent her days in the grime of the city courthouse. But for the first time in her career, she slept through the night. She worked on cases that mattered, defending people who had been chewed up by the same system Miller had manipulated. Chloe was her mentor in this new world, teaching her how to win on a shoestring budget. They often grabbed drinks at the Gilded Lily, but now it was a place of celebration, not suspicion. They toasted to the victims of the Kendrick cartel who were finally seeing restitution. Madison felt a sense of purpose that the billable hour had never provided. She was still a shark, but now she was hunting for the vulnerable, making sure the law worked for everyone. One afternoon, Madison received a letter in the mail. It was from Elias Miller, sent from a federal penitentiary. She stared at the return address for a long time before opening it. The letter was a single page, written in his precise, elegant hand. He didn't apologize. Instead, he praised her performance on the witness stand, calling it the most brilliant closing argument he had ever seen. He told her that he had always known she was too good for the life he had planned for her. Madison felt a chill as she read the words. Even in prison, he was trying to maintain a hold on her, trying to claim credit for her success. She walked over to the fireplace and dropped the letter into the flames. She watched as the paper curled and turned to ash, the ink disappearing into the heat. She didn't need his approval, and she didn't need his legacy. She was her own woman now, built on a foundation of her own making. The fire burned bright. The city continued to pulse outside her window, a constant tide of ambition and struggle. Madison stood on her balcony, looking at the skyline she had once wanted to conquer. The glass towers were still there, but they looked different now, fragile and hollow. She knew the secrets they held, and she knew the cost of keeping them. Chloe joined her, handing her a glass of wine. "Thinking about the past?" she asked. Madison shook her head and leaned against the railing. "No, I'm thinking about the future. We have that hearing tomorrow for the Garcia case. I think we can win it if we use the precedent from the 1994 appellate ruling." Chloe laughed, a warm and familiar sound. "Still a nerd, still looking for that one perfect line of logic." Madison smiled, feeling the ring on her finger and the warmth of her friend beside her. "The logic is simple, Chloe. Justice is a long game. And I've got all the time in the world." They watched the sun set over the Hudson. The stars began to appear, pinpricks of light in the urban haze. Madison felt a deep sense of contentment. The betrayal she had suspected had been a phantom, a ghost of her own making. But the real betrayal had been the catalyst for her liberation. She had lost a firm, a mentor, and a high-status life, but she had gained herself. She turned back to the apartment, where Leo was setting the table for dinner. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the air, a simple and honest scent. She realized that her life wasn't defined by the cases she won or the money she made, but by the people who stood by her when the lights went out. She walked inside and closed the balcony door, shutting out the noise of the city. She was Madison Blake, and she was no longer a shield for anyone else's secrets. She was a woman who knew the truth, and she was finally ready to live it. The story of her suspicion was over. The story of her life was just beginning.